Welcome to our next class. We are still covering the skeleton plane, element number 6, and we will look at navigation. Although navigation is also part of the structure plane, but we need to consider it in our wireframe also. So again, our 5 elements of the user experience, and essentially at the skeleton plane, we are looking at the structural components that will make up our product. So at the skeleton plane, we will develop a physical structure for each page, screen, view, etc. We're looking at how the information is organized, how everything is related, and how all the pieces fit together and behave. In the physical world, we have navigation. For example, when you go into a grocery store, you're usually trying to find something, especially if it's the first time. You could browse, you could ask someone, you could also look around for cues. So we have navigation cues in the physical world. In the digital world, we have navigation cues also. For example, when we go to a website similar to a grocery store, we're trying to find something. We can just browse around. We can use a search box. Navigation can usually consist of browsing, making your way through some kind of a hierarchy. So here I have a little bit of a screenshot of Zappos, where we see some kind of a navigation system. We also have another way of finding things, different ways that we could search, and a search box, ultimately live help. Some considerations when developing a navigation system, especially for a website or a mobile product, but it can also be for a printed product also. In the digital world, there may not be a sense of scale. For example, how many pages in the website? How large is the website? There might not be a sense of direction. Are we going down in the hierarchy? Are we going up, to the left, to the right? There might not be a sense of location of where things are in relation to each other. So we have this conceptual navigation versus the physical navigation. So the physical navigation is more or less how we organize our content. The conceptual is how we present it to the user so that they can understand it and make some sense of it. We look at the home as always being the starting point, a fixed point in our scheme. Unfortunately, people do use the back button, especially in mobile applications, and that accounts for a large percentage of our clicks. So to develop good user-centered navigation, we need to remember, we need to allow the user to find what they're looking for. It also needs to tell us where we are in the overall scheme of things. It should also give us a reference point. For example, at least we should know where home is. And it should tell us what is here. And this is more content based. You should structure your content, your phrasing, so that when the user is in a certain place, they have a general awareness of what is there. In the book, we have this term wayfinding. And it essentially means helping the user to understand where they are and also where they can go. That's very, very important. For example, in a shopping mall, and this is not the best map here, it's a little skewed, we see this all the time, this color coding scheme of the different levels or of the different color coding for the different types of stores, and there's always the proverbial "you are here." You see these in malls, parking garages, etc. So there's some way of identifying where we are in relation to the scheme of things and obviously where we can go. So here again, navigation, the point is to tell us what is here, to reveal the content also. And this may be more important than finding your way around, letting the user to know where things are. When they click on the page, letting them know what's there so that they know whether they've clicked on to the right page or not. Very, very important. Navigation also tells us how to use the site, and a good navigation system will build confidence in the business. So there are two focuses in navigation. The design itself, here again being able to get around, and the information design, how we communicate the choices. And we do that by our words, our pictures, possibly by the type of font we use. So here again, revealing the content, understanding who the user is, helps us to choose our phrasing, our labeling, and the typography. Understanding more about the user, what they might be searching, helps us to reveal the content. We have navigation in the physical world. Street signs, page numbers in a book, chapter titles in a book. So if you look one way, signs look the same, whether you're in New Jersey or California. Street signs usually have a similar look and feel. Page numbers, chapters, usually in the same place, or at least they're consistent. It is always a good idea to follow conventions that have already been established. Breaking conventions can be useful, but more so than not, users are already accustomed to conventions and it helps them to understand. Okay, so the navigation in the digital world essentially has emerged from our print or physical world. So here we have some screenshots from the Gap navigation, where we have a site ID, so we are always aware of where we are. The "you are here" indicator, in this case we have a little icon plus jeans is bolder. This is typography and the icon. When we click on something, okay, we go to another page, which here again gives us the site ID and navigation related to where we've clicked on. So navigation, and it's more important in the web, must accomplish three goals. Number one, it has to be a means from getting from one point to another. You can't provide a link to everything on your site, so you have to have these main points. Point number two, it must communicate the relationship between the points. Point number three, it must communicate the relationship between where the user is and where everything else is. So to summarize again, a good navigation system tells the user where they are and where they can go. We see the "you are here" concept. So here when we go to Urban Outfitters, and if I click on the women's page, we see the underline. It is indicating to me, using typography and underline, that this is where I am. So the book talks about multiple navigation systems. We have a global navigation system which shows the key points, the key top-level categories, the main sections. We might have a local. So underneath each global category, there might be some local subcategories. So this concept of a parent-child relationship in navigation is very common, especially on the web. We might also have what is called supplemental navigation, some shortcuts to some content that is important but really doesn't fit into the two above types. So here we have a picture of a website hierarchy with our home page branching into the About Us, products and services, further subdivided. And here again, this is our physical layout. From the home page, we have the privacy policy. It doesn't really lend itself to the other categories. It's more supplemental. You also might see what is called linear navigation, which is more sequential, going directly from one point to another. Courtesy, similar to what we just saw, provides access to items that you may not need but you could. Contextual, and this is some type of link that is immersed in the content. So here we see a Google search results, an example of our linear type navigation, the next, the next, the next, previous. Here at the bottom, some courtesy links, and here we have a contextual link. There are many types of navigation systems, and most of the time you use a lot of them in combination together. Sitemaps, a hierarchical outline. An index, an alphabetical list, find things based on the alphabet. Breadcrumbs, which is a process. A search box, and blogs. Blogs are a totally different animal that allow us to find information in different ways, very unique from our typical websites. So here we have a very common index, and this is taken from Blackboard. If you're not aware of it, we have this breadcrumb navigation system on the top so that you can easily see where you are and click back to where you were. And blog navigation allows you to search by tags, by posts, by archives, by categories. So these are very, very unorganized. They're based on metadata. In your global navigation scheme, which is generally persistent, or should be persistent from page to page, you generally have your site ID also. In many instances, that link will go back to the home page. So here we have the logo as the site ID with a distinct interface, typeface, recognizable, and generally links back to the home page. Some examples of the "you are here" concept from the Gap. Notice the pants shorts, bolder, the icon. Another scenario where we have the icon next to it, or we could change the color, or we could change the boldness, or we could reverse the color and change the color. So there's all different ways that you can cue the user in to where they are. Here again, it goes back to the very beginning, understanding who the user is. I'd like to talk about selective attention because this is important when you're developing user-centered content. Most of the time, the user is looking for something specific. When some kind of an element, something, that is meaningful to them. And even though he might be looking directly at it, he can't seem to see it. Why? How many times we did that? We'll say, "Where did I put that?" Or "Where is something?" And you think you know where it is, or you think you know something what it might look like, and you can't see it. All right. So we have inattentional blindness, selective attention, and selective perception. Okay. We seem to have our own ways that we perceive things, and we kind of see what we think we should see or what we want to see. And this is the URL, and it is on Blackboard. Some principles that we can draw from that video that you should watch. Number one, our eyes cannot process everything that comes into our field of view. We tend to focus in one area more and less in others. Something to keep in mind when developing your interface for the user. Our expectations manipulate our perceptions. We have an idea of what we're expecting to find. Our motivations manipulate our perception. We have a reason for doing things. Different users may perceive your product in different ways. or they may overlook or misinterpret some parts of your interface. Therefore, knowing the motivation and the goals of the user and reinforcing them using cues helps make your interface more predictable for the user. Again, having an understanding of your user gives you the ability to design interfaces that have more focus and clarity. Understanding their expectations allows us to put the right information in the right place at the right time.